Thank you for coming. My name is Aaron Minces. I'm with Earthworks. Earthworks is a national NGO that focuses on natural gas development and seeks sustainable solutions, and I live in Baltimore. And so although I'm based in D.C., as any Marylander, like you guys, I care a great deal about what happens in our state. I really wanted to give particular thanks to some of our friends at Chesapeake Climate Action Network and Food and Water Watch and Earth Justice and probably some other organizations I'm forgetting who have been very helpful in everything from securing the room to ordering the pizza to help bring folks here. And before I turn it over to Ray and Craig, I wanted to provide just a little bit of context about what this is about, why we're here. StoptheFrackAttack is a national network of people who are concerned about what's happening to our country in terms of irresponsible oil and gas development. And what we have decided to do is to create, I guess we're kind of calling it a roadshow of sorts. I think we called it Cautionary Tales from Fracked Communities. This roadshow is taking us to areas where fracking has not yet occurred, but might, and it might very soon. And before the policymakers in various states like Maryland actually decide whether or not hydraulic fracturing should go forward in this state, we decided that they need to hear from Ray and from Craig. So the order of this evening is that I am going to introduce Ray and Craig. They'll give about 10-minute presentations. I'm then going to turn it over to Megan Jenny from Chesapeake Climate Action Network, we have divided you up into groups, so we may actually have a brief period of time for some Q&A if you're interested, and then we're going to do some lit drops around some of the offices of the delegates and senators here. Tomorrow we want to invite them, the delegates and senators, to a legislative briefing we're hosting, where we'll get to hear again from Ray and Craig as they speak directly to a number of our policymakers who are going to be making some very important decisions over the next, I guess, what it is, 75, 80 days or so, something that Megan is going to fill you in about a little bit more in a second. To my immediate right is Ray Kemble. Ray is from Dimock, Pennsylvania. And when I first met Ray, I think he was wearing his Harley stuff too, you know? And he was carrying around a jug of contaminated water from his area in Dimock. I want him to sort of tell you the story about what has happened in Dimock and what is happening in Dimock. The only part I just simply wanted to mention, which I hope you'll bring up too, is the EPA has abandoned Dimock. And they have abandoned Parker County, Texas, and Pavilion, Wyoming. And this is part of a very troubling pattern where people who are most acutely affected by the problems associated with this heavy industrial activity are getting nowhere with the regulators who are entrusted to protect them. And what's happening here, as I hope we'll find gradually, is that some of the anger that Ray and Craig and some of our friends have really experienced is really beginning to percolate through municipalities and towns across America, and now soon into different state legislatures, like here in Annapolis and in Harrisburg. And we can give you lots of examples of how the Dallas City Council is putting a vote, and Longmont, Colorado has a number of votes, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had their ruling on Act 13. We can get into all these specifics, but what's happening here is that the people are beginning to rise up, and their local officials are beginning to listen. And so we wanted to bring Ray and Craig around to have them talk to our local officials, and then soon actually our federal officials as well, so that we can finally bring a stop to this. So first I want to go talk to hear from Ray Kemble from Dimock, Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Ray, take it away. Here, have a mic.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Thank you. Not quite a spot to put it. How you all doing this evening? Ray Kemble out of Dimock, Pennsylvania. Oh, long story, try to make it short. Besides being an affected landowner of Dimock, Pennsylvania, I am also an ex-gas worker. When everything went south up there, and DEP and everybody else came in. This is a pretest from Cabot Gas and Oil that pretested my water well prior to drilling or fracking because they were within 500 feet of my home on my neighbor's property, not mine. So they had to do a pretest. This is actual lab results showing the meters that were used, showing no methane, right down that chain of custody you have to have for a legal court case. After that was done, they started drilling and fracking, and oh wait, all our neighbors and all of us saw drastic changes in the water, turning colors, smells. So we all started calling DEP, which took months of numerous people screaming that the water's been changing due to gas drilling and fracking in the area. This is the test results from our state DEP showing over 27 chemicals in the water in our wells on the 19 original houses in Dimock, Pennsylvania. I love starting on the back because it's so interesting. On the back reading uranium-238, uranium-235 and 236, uranium-234, 3 grades of thorium, strontium, manganese. The list just goes on and on, right down to arsenic. And I see we have the young voters in the room tonight, too. We're going to ask Mommy what the regulated levels of uranium and thorium are for the baby's formula bottle. Okay? Which is 0. Okay? So then we turn around, DEP put a 9-mile moratorium in Dimock, Pennsylvania. They are not allowed to drill, frack, or do anything in this 9 square miles. This moratorium is still in effect today at this time because EPA came in first round in March of 12 and gave this report after they tested the water out of 19 homes. I looked at it real quick. Now you gotta remember, this is our federal EPA. I open it up and I have a spreadsheet. I said, my 5-year-old grandson can make that. Where are the test results? Oh, we're going to come back and explain it to you. Okay. Well, they did. Came back on March 20th with this one. This one's right. This one's wrong. I want this one back. Here's the right one. Thank you very much. Well, we have to have the other one back. Goodbye. Get off my property. So they changed the levels to make it look right. Then they went national. On the 22nd of July, they turned around and said there was nothing wrong in Dimock, Pennsylvania, Parker County, or Pavilion, Wyoming. Then why did the EPA write that report on the 23rd of July, the day after, telling me my water was contaminated? We got it out of the local authority that was there due to political views, get out of these 3 areas and shut it down because it was screwing up the re-election. Shortly afterwards, with our DEP, not once, not twice, but 3 times, these are the legal documents signed by the head CEO of Cabot Gas and Oil, their head legal counsel, and the Department of DEP of Pennsylvania stating that they contaminated the water in Dimock, Pennsylvania. 3 times this is done. I still have no water. And that's the legal documents. Then we had the EPA, one of the officials, which we can't say who because we don't know who, did a PowerPoint presentation which went out in the New York Times saying on how all this was done and all the contaminants and the water in these areas is contaminated. And that was put out through the LA Times, and that ran across from the West Coast to East Coast, went rampant within days. It was in every newspaper in the country when this was done. But all this started, so I went to work for the gas company. I wanted to find out what was really going on because I couldn't get any answers out of the local officials. And I got a job driving a water truck. And I did this for numerous years. We cross-contaminate the trucks. We will take brine and flow back and we put it in freshwater trucks. We will take it out and spray it on the roads for dust control. because you're all just stupid. It says fresh water on the side. They don't know any better. We take it to different areas. We'll dump it in the woods. We've dumped it in the creek beds. We have in containment ponds where we turn around and we evaporate it into the air. Most of our tanks facilities are sitting by contributaries. We get heavy rainstorms. We run out there and pop the valves open on the tanks, and we drain it into the creek beds, which run into the rivers of Susquehanna and so forth. And the earth is an open loop system, so if you throw it in a contributory here, it gets to the big river, it goes to the ocean, it gets everywhere, okay? Like I said, the earth is a closed loop system. But we use millions and millions of gallons of water for one stage of a frack. I've been on pads where we had to do 50-stage fracks on one well. We have 10 wells on one 5-acre pad. And there's 50 stages per frack. You're not going to understand just imagine 300 million gallons of water being shoved in the ground per stage, per frack, 50 times per well, times 10 on one pad. We have withdrawal stations all through the Susquehanna River, all through Susquehanna County. Right now, we're pulling just a little over 39 million gallons of water a day out of the Susquehanna River. This is all for fracking and drilling and whatever else we decide to use it for. Problem is, this is water that's taken out of the cycle of life. This is water you're never going to see for rain. You're never going to see it to, different parts of the Susquehanna is water inlets for different towns and cities for their fresh water. That's where they get their water from, is the Susquehanna River. This is water that's being removed. They're complaining in the bottom half of the state now because you can almost walk across the Susquehanna River from one side to the other because the river is so low because we've pulled so much water from the upper side of the river. Contributaries. We pull water from every contributary you can think of. Any place we can get water, we'll get it. When we had the drought a few years back, they put it out that, it was a drought. We got the order from the governor, hurry up, we're giving you 3 weeks before we put the drought into effect. Get all the water you can in 3 weeks' time. So the trucks ran triple time. Nobody cares about the hours or anything else on. You just ran, and got every ounce of water you could get out of the river. When the river got so low, they actually sent guys out and moved the pumps farther out into the river so we could still get the water. Screens were removed. I mean, you find frogs, turtles, you name it, you'd find them in the trucks because we were sucking everything right out of the river. Fish, don't care. Mud, our drilling mud. Oh, yes, that's such a wondrous thing. It's full of every type of uranium and you could think of. This is the mud. This is the mud that's used to punch through the aquifer before the casing's ever put in for drilling. And my time is just about up, so I'm going to have to stop. I'll let Craig take over here. But again, 9% of the casings fail immediately in the drilling process. And that's one thing you have to realize. When the casings fail, we will put those wells online, and the water aquifers get contaminated. We don't care. The wells are drilled, they're fracked, they go online. Thank you.
So let me introduce Craig. Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. I also wanted to introduce Craig Stevens for his presentation. When I first met Craig, he was proudly supporting his CPAC badge and his you got it today? Good. CPAC 2012 and his Tea Party credentials. So Craig reminds us that getting fracked is truly nonpartisan. And if you are a landowner, Craig is a 6th-generation landowner in Susquehanna County in the Montrose, Pennsylvania region. And if you're a landowner and an oil and gas well is coming to your neighborhood, it doesn't care what political party you belong to, and nor does your land value really care that much either. So let me just go ahead and turn it over to Craig Stevens. Craig, talk to us, please.
Evening, folks. Craig Stevens. I'm a sixth-generation landowner, Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. My mom's from Oswego, New York. I'm a fifth-generation New Yorker. And I was born and raised in California, lived there for 46 years. The industry doesn't like me very much because I'm covering every point on the compass in the country that they are trying to destroy. Raised a right-wing conservative. Lived in Reston for 4 years, from 2006 to 2010, right up the road here, not too far away, about an hour. We thought this was going to be great. I moved there in 2010 to my ancestral home, January 2010. All my neighbors were excited. They're finally going to make money off this property they've been sitting on and tilling rocks out of for the last couple hundred years, like my family. And it was an exciting time. Of course, when the landmen came in and were offering $5 an acre, and when the people didn't fall for that, they went to $10 and $25 and $50. It eventually got, for anybody here, $6,000 an acre. Imagine if you signed at $5 an acre, and then your neighbor signs at $6,000, becomes a millionaire, and you got a new car or truck out of the deal. The animosity started. This is really not about fracturing the ground for energy. It's about fracturing communities. That's what it does. I will guarantee you. They come in town. I didn't know anything about what was going on. My dad died in 2007, and the house I'm living in is an ancestral home. My brother and sister and I were told horror stories by him about the oil and gas industry 3 days before he died, and he was right on in every single thing he told us. He knew all about what was coming. I will tell you, moving into a neighborhood where your family's been for 200 years and then coming out against something that everybody is for, it's not very welcoming, I'll tell you that right now. But my dad raised me to stand for what's right. My mom and dad did, and I know what's right and what's wrong with this situation. I immediately put out important questions for landowners to ask the gas industry. These are real tough questions like, where's the meter? How do I know how much money you owe me each month? There isn't one. Do you know that? There is no meter per se, they said. This is a giant Ponzi scheme, as my dad put it. And he told my brother and sister and I, and we know nothing about this, if the gas industry representative's mouth is moving, they're lying to you. And if this is on, I'm talking to the people who are in these offices, in these hallways. Anything they tell you is an untruth. I will tell you why. I've got $101 million bills. This money is as fake as any promise you're being made by this industry. I've watched them destroy the water of almost my entire community. I have no less than 40 people living within 10 minutes drive of me that have a plastic water tank where their private water well used to produce clean water, some for generations. And now it comes out, pardon what I'm saying in a second here, look like Ray's, carbonated diarrhea that smells like a skunk's rear end. That's exactly what his water looks and smells like. I don't know who can call that good, but our own governor, Governor Corbett. See, it started under a Democrat, Rendell, who cares, and now it's been pushed even further under a Republican. This is not a political issue. If you're here looking at this, no matter what side of the fence you're on politically, this is about human beings, animals, and plants being able to survive after this industry, oil and gas industry and the fossil fuel industry comes in. Hey, I like to drive in cars, fly in planes, drive boats. But we all have to start thinking about how is the energy that we're utilizing, being taken out and brought to us, and we're responsible partially when we flip the light switch on for what's happening in northeastern Pennsylvania, what's happening in Ohio, what's happening all over the country and all over the world, sadly to say. I will tell you, they got everybody really fired up about America's fuel. Well, if you go on ferc.gov, that's ferc.gov, I always tell the legislators to do that. That's map on their own site shows 33 export terminals. They call them conveniently import-export. There is no such thing as imported natural gas anymore, not for the last 3 or 4 years. Our America's fuel is going to be piped. There's the other thing, the infrastructure. Wait till you see what they're going to do to Maryland. They are cutting millions of acres of trees down in Pennsylvania to put pipelines in, compressor stations, and push this gas to where? Well, they sold us on that, but I've got an article right here about Cabot Oil and Gas just recently signed a 20-year agreement with the country of Japan. Starts in 2017. It says in this article, this is a financial publication, Wall Street Journal, they're going to take the natural gas from the fields in Pennsylvania, by the way, where we live, pipe it here, at Cove Point, Maryland. That's what it says here. They're going to liquefy it. They're going to take it to minus 260 degrees. How much energy does that take, by the way? Then they're going to put it on a tanker. Now, if you want to really get scared, go to lngdanger.com. Do you know what a 1,000-foot long, 300-foot wide tanker full of liquefied natural gas does if it explodes? It's 57 Hiroshimas. Got it? That's right here. You'll never escape it from here. 70 miles from the nation's capital. This is insanity. We are taking energy out by poking holes in the ground, damaging water. The company's response to all of our neighbors was, we didn't do it. All of our legislators, we didn't do it. I don't know about you, but when somebody new in town comes and starts poking holes in the ground and all of a sudden people's water goes brown or black and they can't use it anymore, and then you go, hey, I don't know what went on, but everything started changing when you guys started poking holes in the ground. And instead of our own elected officials responding, I always tell the elected officials I speak to, Ray and I just got through in California 2 weeks ago. They want me to go to Florida because everyone's afraid of this coming to their state. Guess how many of our state elected officials, county, federal, state, and local, have come to visit any of my neighbors that have had contaminated water between 2 and 5 years? If you guessed 0, that would be it. I'm wondering if the money side of this is having an influence on that. And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to answer in the affirmative on that one. But the problem is, when this contamination that's happening all over the United States, there's a thing called the list of the harmed. Easy to Google. When you click on it, it's going to show you almost 1,800 now entries from all over the United States. 40 states are represented. Every story is exactly the same. It starts off with, my water changed suddenly, the color, the clarity, the odor. Some say it went black or brown, it doesn't matter. Then the bubbles came. Let me tell you something. If you can get methane bubbles to increase in water, everything else they're putting in the ground can come up too. It's not like methane only will come up when there's a fracture. It's going to bring other things too. My focus has always been safety and protection. I carry my document showing how I got my property because the industry says I stole it from my grandmother. But I'm here representing some people that can't be here tonight, like my mother and father here, pictured here. Also, my beautiful 11 and 9-year-old boys, Kieran and Bradley, that live over in Reston, Virginia. By the way, they want to frack the George Washington National Forest, which is the water supply for this entire area here, Washington, D.C., and the Potomac provides water to Fairfax County Water, which is where my children live. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see firsthand what's happening up in Pennsylvania, and we're living with all the damage, and the denial is unbelievable. But guess who does believe us? We've got friends now, friends I never imagined I would meet. I've had 8 sitting senators from New York come and tour where we live. We've had about 50 assembly members come and tour. We've had Sean Lennon, Yoko Ono, Arun Gandhi, Robert Kennedy Jr., you name it, they've been, Susan Sarandon, everybody's come, even right-wing conservative Tea Party Senator Greg Ball. Greg Ball was the most impressive to me. He came to Dimock 2.5 years ago, and he was introduced to the families, including Ray there, and he said, I'm a right-wing Tea Party conservative, and unless you show me something really scary, I'm going to go back and tell my legislature to drill, baby, drill. 2 hours later, he was shocked. He looked like a ghost, white. And he invited us to speak at his Facts on Fracking hearing in a few weeks after that. We went and spoke. He had lined up 5 industry representatives to come and speak. They had 4 Democrats and 4 Republican senators invited. Only he showed up as a Republican and only 2 of the Democrats did. They bowed out at the last minute, and all 5 of the industry representatives had to change the air in their bicycle tires so they couldn't show up for some reason and represent their industry. He was so upset, but not as upset as at lunchtime when we saw him on his iPad. They put out a press release halfway through his Facts on Fracking hearing that they were invited to come and attend that said Senator Greg Ball's Facts on Fracking hearing is a sham. You know why they did that? Because we showed up. People that represent what's really happening. They can't handle the truth. I'm going to end with this because it's almost time to go. But I was honored to be invited, the first time invited by the United Nations to come and speak just a few months ago. But Gandhi, I'm hanging out with the Gandhis now. Isn't that interesting? The right-wing Tea Party conservative guy. Gandhi said, "Earth provides enough for every man's need, but not every man's greed." Let that sink in for a minute and repeat it to your children. But my new favorite guy is Pete Seeger, who just passed away. We helped get him on the stage at Farm Aid. It was his last big performance. Pete's banjo said, "This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender." Got it? This industry is hate. They do nothing but destroy all of us at the benefit of their own pocketbook. Pete also says participation, it's what's going to save the human race. Get involved and pick a side. Because where I live, if you're in the middle of the road on anything, a big truck full of water, sand, or mud will run you over. I'll end with this. Martin Luther King said, on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks a very important question, is it right? If you, the citizens of Maryland, the good people of Maryland, allow this industry to come here and destroy your beautiful state like they've done to my father's ancestral home, and they've been trying to do for 6 years to my mother's, you are insane and you're inviting generational suicide. And I will stand with you to stop this. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening.
Thank you. You need that. Yeah. Thank you, Craig. I thought it was actually especially poignant when you were talking about Cove Point in particular. Even if we do, when we do, keep fracking out of the state, we still have this Cove Point issue I guess we have to deal with, right, Megan? Yeah. So I wanted to turn it over now to Megan Jenny with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network to provide us a little bit of context for what's happening here in the Old Line State. Megan.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. And thank you, Ray and Craig, for being here and coming to Maryland to share your stories. So again, I'm Megan Jenny. I'm the Maryland Field Coordinator with Chesapeake Climate Action Network. So it's my job to make sure that legislators are hearing from folks like you about issues like fracking that we're really concerned about. And so I want to just provide some context for where the issue of fracking is right now in Maryland. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do tonight, go talk to some legislators. So the good news is that currently there is no fracking in Maryland. That being said, there have been significant chunks of thousands of acres leased in Western Maryland in Allegheny and Garrett counties by the industry with the intent to frack it. But thanks to an executive order that was passed in 2011 by Governor O'Malley, we have held fracking at bay. That executive order was signed in 2011, and it created this 15-person commission ranging from industry representatives with Chevron to people who never want to see fracking happen in Maryland and everything in between. And those 15 people were tasked with overseeing the state agencies as they spend 3 years studying the risks of fracking to Maryland. So on its face, that sounds great. The bad news is that for the first 2 years of this commission, there was no funding to complete these very expensive studies. And so the commission twiddled their thumbs and argued about fracking and didn't get anything done. Last year, the governor put $1.5 million into the budget to start doing some of these studies. But it's pretty clear at this point when the executive order expires in 6 months. So we're looking at August 1st as the deadline for this executive order when all of these studies need to be done. It's becoming really clear to those of us who've been watching this process from 2011 that the studies are not going to be complete by August 1st. Not with the vigor that we deserve as Marylanders to ensure that we know what the risks really are to our health, our water, our air, and our climate. And so it's become clear to us that we cannot rely on this executive order process to really protect Marylanders from fracking. And so that's why we are meeting at the General Assembly this evening. We are working with others around the state to pass legislation to put real protections in place so that we can hopefully prevent having Marylanders experience similar things to our friends in Pennsylvania. And so through Stop the Frack Attack partners, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the different types of the 3 bills that we're focusing on tonight that focus on fracking through the General Assembly. So you'll all get a copy of this fact sheet too. So you can't follow along just yet, but it's coming. The first is the Shale Gas Drilling Safety Review Act. Many of you know this bill as the moratorium bill. It is very similar from last year's bill. It just has a new name. We dressed it up a little bit. This bill will give the General Assembly 2 legislative sessions to digest the studies that are being completed and or to the extent that they are complete by August 1st through the governor's executive order. And give them the opportunity to act on fracking. So that could mean clearly we need to study this more. We don't have all the facts. The commission didn't get its job done by August 1st. Or it could mean this is really dangerous. This is not the right direction. We need to talk about banning fracking. And so that's that bill, and you'll get a quick synopsis of it right here. The second bill is a hydraulic fracturing prohibition. So this is an outright ban bill for no fracking ever happening in Maryland. Very simple and to the point. And the third bill is a hydraulic fracturing wastewater prohibition. So this bill would ban the storage, treatment, or disposal of wastewater from natural gas wells in Maryland. As we just heard, fracking requires tens of thousands of gallons of water and secret dangerous chemicals that can leach into our ground and surface water as well. And so I'm thankful you all are here tonight because you're going to be encouraging your legislators to join these gentlemen tomorrow at a briefing similar to this one at noon, meant for the General Assembly members. And you're also going to be handing them over this fact sheet with outlining the concerns of fracking in Maryland and also just giving them the information they need to know how they can take action on it through those 3 bills this year. And so, do we have time for questions, or do we want to break up into?
Yeah, it's 6:44, and we're going to go at 7 to start lobbying, so we got about 15 minutes.
Okay, great. So just before we start taking questions then, I just wanted to let folks know, when many of you came in, I gave you a group number, A, B, C, D, or E. And so after we break, after questions, for those of you in the group A, which is anyone who lives in Anne Arundel County, for folks who didn't check in, you're going to be with me. Group B is going to be with Rebecca in the back there, and that's anyone who lives in Baltimore City. Anyone in Howard or Montgomery counties, you're in Group D with Jorge, right over there. And then anyone in Prince George's County or Southern Maryland is going to be with Kirsten, right there. But why don't we take 10 minutes of questions, and then we can... Great. Aaron, do you want to facilitate that? Great.
Just, you have to speak into the mic, so if people who are watching on live stream can do it.
Do you want to just repeat the question?
So can you just repeat the question for folks, Aaron?
Thank you, panel. What examples of communities that have resisted fracking can you tell us about, and what best practices can we look to for those communities that have been successful in stopping it? Thank you.
The question was, what examples do you have of communities that have resisted fracking? And what are the best practices from those examples?
We'll let Craig have it.
Craig.
Are you talking about in Pennsylvania or anywhere? Anywhere. Okay. Well, the only place we've seen it staved off, New York has staved it off for almost 6 years, or over 6 years now, or coming up on 6. That's unbelievable, because if you Google the industry, 2 years is about as long as any country lasts, let alone a state. The money's just too exciting to everybody. But the damage is, I would say we have a multi-trillion-dollar cleanup at the state right now in the United States at this stage. This is 3 Mile Island, Love Canal, the Gulf oil disaster, Exxon Valdez, and throw in any other natural disaster, man-made, and combine it and multiply it by 100. So who staves it off? is people who stand up against it. I'm most shocked to find the political side is very interesting because it doesn't matter whether we have a right-wing conservative or a left-wing Democrat in the governor's office. We were just in California. That's owned by all three. All three parts of the legislature are owned by the Democrats, and they're basically looking at starting this. What it takes is people to rise up. That's what happened. I think they messed with the wrong state because, of course, downstate New York has people like Pete Seeger and Natalie Merchant and all these people that just stood up and said, we're not allowing this. And one thing I will tell you, if you haven't done it yet, come to where we are. We do tours every single day, 365. And anybody that's come, even if they were anti this, has changed their perspective on it. They become more vocal and forceful. So that's how you do it. You have to come and see it, bring it back, and tell people, we've seen it, have you? If they're for it, you don't argue with them. You just say, you need to go see what's really going on, and not a rig tour. So I would say right now, New York is a shining example. There's others that are trying in Illinois and California and others to fight it, but it's very hard. The industry spends $150 million a year on PR. The commercials are great. After I watched one of their commercials, I'm almost ready to get it going again until I snap out and go, wait a minute. So remember, there were PR machines in history in this world that were very good at what they did, and they ended up costing tens of million people their lives. So, and this is truth and fact. So my focus is, we want the truth. That's all we want. One thing they cannot do, they still haven't fixed raised water in 5 years, and they can't fix it. And if they can't fix the mess they're making, then they don't deserve to be doing this at all.
There is a moratorium still in effect.
So I wanted to just talk briefly about a couple of specific examples. In Colorado so far has, I think, demonstrated some of the best success so far at resisting or banning fracking. And what you find in Colorado, a recent vote by the Dallas City Council, what we expect or hope to see out of Denton, Texas. When Craig was talking about New York State, what you're seeing is the same thing. I want to also give credit to Food and Water Watch, who's been very successful getting local bans in some of the communities here in Maryland, College Park and Greenbelt, maybe some other places around there. What's happened is that communities are beginning to rise up. And so in places like Colorado, for example, areas that have long histories of oil and gas development, all of a sudden people are beginning to say, wow, this is really beginning to affect, public health and the environment and what we really care about. And so they're voting. They're voting on it. Yes, sir.
I've heard and read on the internet that part of the fracking process brings up radon gas along with the natural gas, and that gets carried along to wherever it's burned and released at that end. The concern here should be that everybody who will be exposed to that gas, that they're also going to be exposed to radon gas. It is part of this Marcellus shale area is full of radon gas. Every homeowner here who hasn't done a radon test in their own home should do it. And when you're going down a mile and out in all different directions, you obviously are going to be disrupting that gas as well as the methane that's down there, bringing it up along with it. I don't understand, again, why the EPA and the federal government isn't taking a more proactive stance on this, because it is a major problem. It's a major problem in every home, just with natural occurring surface gas and radon gas. But when you're going down and you're pulling up the billions of cubic feet of this stuff and spreading it through the pipelines to every industry and home, whether it's in India or Japan or here in the United States, they're all going to get exposed from it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the comment. The comment was about radon gas in particular and the naturally occurring radioactive materials that are underneath the ground. Any of you guys want to respond to that?
One, being an ex-gas worker, all shale formations are radioactive. That's proven fact. Right now, coming out of my water well, okay, you got uranium-238, 235, 236, and uranium-234, okay? I've even made calls to the Regulatory Commission, okay, for nuclear power, is why the gas lines are not being checked for radioactive gas going through them. Because if we have it coming into the water wells, it's coming into the different dehydrators on site. Also, it's coming off the compressor stations that right now I think we got 40 in our county alone. The air quality is so bad, it's ridiculous. They want to put another compressor station next to my house right now. They just bought my neighbor's property and they want to put a compressor station there. My house is already worth $0. I can't afford any more sickness and contamination coming through from the industry. But the radioactive is very high. It's high in the water. Villanova was there testing the water the one day. They put a Geiger counter by the hose on the ground and got a reading off a Geiger counter coming off the water hose out of my well. But nobody wants to test. You can't get anybody from the federal government that literally wants to go test, excuse me, the lines for radioactivity, because it's all about the almighty dollar once again.
Just so happens, thanks for asking that question, I have the 2012 Susquehanna County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Every county in the country has to do one of those to get their federal funding. Every 5 years has to be updated. This is our most recent. Would you like to know that 12 pages of this are dedicated to radon? Why? Pennsylvania has one of the highest radium contents in their soil under the ground of any state in the United States. One of the highest in the entire world. So the gas they're going to send up through the pipes and everything here are full. Plus, radon is a noble gas. It doesn't burn off when you ignite it. It comes out in the air. So I find it very funny that I have to have a radon test, everyone does in the country pretty much, to sell or list their home. And if it's high, they have to vent it. But did you know when you turn on your gas flame on your stove, radon, if it's in the gas, will be coming right out into the air for you to experience in your lungs and your children's lungs. Nobody talks about this because it's something they don't want you to hear. But we've got all the documentation. This is from SUSQCO, that's Susquehanna County, SUSCO.com. And you can go right on the hazard mitigation plan and read this. It's about a 130-page document. And you know what? The first responders don't like the industry much either when you look at this. They're afraid of every bit of it, from the trucks to the explosions and the hazards that are done. So radon is very important for us all to know about, but it's important to know that it is in the gas that's going into your pipes right now into your house.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Craig. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask about the Dick Cheney provision that prohibits the EPA from doing anything about water problems as a result of oil or gas exploration. Is that something that needs to be addressed in terms of repealing it or doing some legislation to counteract it?
The question was about the so-called Halliburton loophole in the Safe Drinking Water Act, and I could address that. Megan, do you want to on this, Craig? Craig? Yeah.
We all do.
I thought so.
Yeah, well, we all do.
Once again, folks, don't worry about put something in. You know, just because Dick Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton and then was the Vice President of the United States, but hey, that was in 2005. We're talking 9 years ago. Here's the issue. The EPA is not responding to us at all on this. They told me directly, in person, the war is on coal. It's not on natural gas or oil. That's the federal government telling you that. Well, I will tell you. I have a map here of all the coal mines in the United States. There's 600 major coal mines in 12 states. Do I like coal? No. Let's get rid of that too. But while we're trying to figure out how to get energy, my fear is 1 million holes have been put in the ground for fracked oil and over 1 million for fracked natural gas in the United States, in about 40 states total. So why don't we get smart? And if you all haven't seen Dr. Jacobson's plan, his renewable energy plan for the whole United States, he's already got 6 states done. That's Dr. Mark Jacobson. It's called the Solutions Project. It's very easy to look up. He's got a renewable energy plan within the next 30 to 50 years for having the whole United States run on renewable energy. And then we don't have to poke holes in the ground for dinosaur juice anymore, because it's going to dry, but sooner or later it's not going to be there. Then we're going to have to explain to our kids why we didn't think about the future. And that's the key, is the government does not really exempt them from anything. They just don't. They let the states handle it. My dad said that when he was dying too. Pretty smart guy. He said, they're letting the states handle it because it's much easier to, let's return to the money again. It's much easier to buy off state legislatures than it is federal legislators. The federal legislators just cost a lot more money. So they come in state by state. So if we let the federal government, had them come and oversee this properly with their power, That's what we wanted when we called in the EPA for Dimock. We thought they were going to come in like knights in shining armor and save us. What they did was they came in, lied, and covered up and made it even worse, because then it made it look like there wasn't any problem. But I will tell you that I've got a stack of documents here uncovered from our own DEP that show over 1,000 cases of private water well contamination in Pennsylvania that until a few months ago, nobody even knew these documents existed. We think they were in a file cabinet marked coffee filters in the DEP, and they were not releasing them. But it took a court order and a year in court to get them to release these. Shortly after these were released, our Secretary Michael Kranzer of the DEP resigned before this story came out.
Megan, did you want to add anything?
Do you want to check out the Frack Act?
I did. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Can you say the name one more time, please, though, the Solutions Project by?
Dr. Mark Jacobson, Jacobson, Stanford University. Smartest guy on the planet on renewable energy policy.
The Frack Act is been introduced by Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, and that bill intends to close the so-called Halliburton loophole. Do we have any other? Yes, ma'am.
I'm confused about the moratorium versus ban.
Why both?
The question is, Megan, why don't we clear up what's the difference between the moratorium bill and the ban bill, please? Or explain what are we talking about here?
Great. Thanks. Great question, Liz. I know you're familiar with the bills themselves and what they do. So I think the thing to know here is I think that given the facts and the impacts that we're seeing around the rest of the country in places like Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Wyoming, the facts on fracking are pretty scary in terms of what the impacts are to our drinking water, our air, our health, our economies locally. And more facts are coming out every day. That being said, I don't think many of our legislators are in the mindset to, despite all of the evidence on that side, they're not ready to ban fracking in Maryland. They're not ready to vote for a ban. The majority of them, the amount that we need in order to get it done. And so what the moratorium bill does is it gives legislators 2 more years, 2 more sessions to get the facts on fracking and specifically what the impacts will be here in Maryland. It gives them the opportunity to wrap their minds around the studies that are being done, around the studies that CCAN and other groups are commissioning, and gives them the opportunity to act on that after the executive order expires. So it buys them time to really digest the facts and figure out whether or not this is the right way forward for Maryland or not. Instead of just having the executive order expire in August of 2014, this year in 6 months, and us left with completely zero legal protections against fracking.
Just so you know, in Pennsylvania, the Democratic Party was able to put on their platform that if you want to run for Democratic office and be backed by the state Democratic Party, you have to come out for a moratorium, speak about a moratorium, which is phenomenal. I mean, we can't believe it, but we would love a moratorium. I mean, if you don't know this, polling's been done. 76% is the number right now of Pennsylvanians that get polled that want a moratorium. Wait a minute, what? And these include the landowners that 5 years ago when they were getting royalty checks in Dimock, now we're 5 years later, they're not getting a check, they're getting a zero or a negative balance that they owe. So there's the thing, is that reality will set in with the industry sooner or later. I mean, there's the old saying, the bodies will come floating to the surface sooner or later, and then people are going to go, uh-oh. But we're trying, Ray and I are doing this because we believe that if we let people know what may come, then they'll preemptively strike and stop it before they let it start, because the industry says, let us get in there and show you how this works. Well, once they're in the door, it's almost impossible to get it to stop. So we would just say, like they said, you want a ban. If you can't get a ban, you go for a moratorium. If you can't go for an executive moratorium, something just to hold it off. They've done a very good job. And Governor Cuomo is very afraid in New York to do anything with this. He's already stated no decisions till 2015. Would that be after the 2014 elections? Yes.
Well, something too about Dimock, okay? The moratorium that we have there, it's a little bit different, okay? That moratorium that's there, they will not lift that moratorium until they fix the water issues. Of course, they can't. So that moratorium will stay there and haunt them till the day they die. So it'll never happen. The other thing is what happens with this is the industry will work you against husband, against wife, mother, daughter, neighbor, town. They will literally split families and communities apart to where it's almost like the happy old McCoys.
I think we need to wrap up. Thank you so very much for joining us this evening. I wanted to actually turn this, I guess, back over to Megan to help divide us up. And can I just get a round of applause for Ray and Craig? Thanks so much, guys.